Let's get it on together and let's compare our two plans.
I don't know why he's so angry.
You have the most radical administration in American history. I describe this as a secular socialist machine because it's, first of all, obviously a machine. But you couldn't have gotten $787 billion in stimulus money with no one having looked at it. It is clearly socialist. The fact is that when you have a pay-czar in the White House who thinks that they can decide on salary limits for 30 or 40 companies involving hundreds of people they've never met, that's a level of arrogance that only socialism could sustain. And third, they're clearly secular. They are deeply opposed to God being in public life. They're deeply opposed to religious values defining how we think about things. They clearly represent a value system that any reasonable person would call secular.
I don't know why he's so angry.
Secretary of the Treasury Geithner was asking for, where he would decide what companies to take over. He would decide under what circumstances. The American system was not built for one bureaucrat to decide whether or not they could take your property. But take a look, Greta, at a couple other things. When the House last week passed a bill that said they could go back and take 90% of the money from the people at AIG, everybody was happy with that for a second. But wait a second. What if, in fact, then that means Congress can take 90% of your money? And if they can take one group's money, they can take another group's money.
I don't know why he's so angry.
And what the president's doing is in every way possible, he's trying to get around the law and get around the rules by centralizing power without being accountable to anybody. It started in some ways with the stimulus package, which we now know was passed, $787 billion, 1,100 pages. Nobody read it. When it turned out, embarrassingly for the Congress, that it had a provision in there that approved AIG giving out bonuses, the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, Max Baucus, said, gosh, he didn't realize it was in there because they rushed it through. Then it turned out that Senator Chris Dodd, chairman of the Banking Committee, said, you know, he didn't really put it in there. It was put in there by the Treasury, which has to be, frankly, a lie, because the Treasury is not allowed to write legislation. Only the House and Senate can. But what you're seeing is a rush to try to radically change America before the American people have a say in it. And I think this budget, which is the next cycle, where, by the way, they're trying to hide trillions of dollars in debt by only giving you the first 5 years of the budget and not telling you about the second 5 years where the debt balloons. There's something just phony about this whole approach to trying to govern without being honest with the American people.
I don't know why he's so angry.
The left-wing Democrats are alienating America with a big energy tax, with a war on churches and charities, with a big effort to raise taxes on every successful American, with an enormous increase in the federal debt. And I think by 2012, the country will be in a choice of socialism or free enterprise. Which kind of future do you want? And my hunch is the Democrats can't win a campaign that is open, above board, about whether you want cronies, politicians, and bureaucrats to run your life, or you want to have a choice as a citizen about what you do with your own money as a customer and not as a ward of the state.
I don't know why he's so angry.
The Obama administration is an anti-jobs, anti-business, anti-American energy, destructive force, and we shouldn't talk about what we do in 2013. The Congress this year, this next week, ought to repeal the Dodd-Frank bill. They ought to repeal the Sarbanes-Oxley bill. They ought to start creating jobs right now, because for those 14 million Americans, this is a depression now. This campaign cannot be only about the presidency. We need to pick up at least 12 seats in the U.S. Senate and 30 or 40 more seats in the House, because if you are serious about repealing Obamacare, you have to be serious about building a big enough majority in the legislative branch that you could actually, in the first 90 days, pass the legislation. So I just think it's very important to understand, it's not about what one person in America does, it's about what the American people do, and that requires a senatorial majority as well as a presidency.
I don't know why he's so angry.
And one of the things the Congress should do immediately is defund the National Labor Relations Board, which has gone into South Carolina to punish Boeing, which wants to put 8,000 American jobs in South Carolina by fundamentally eliminating right to work at the National Labor Relations Board. Now, that's a real immediate threat from the Obama administration to eliminate right to work, and I think that it is fundamentally the wrong direction. I hope that New Hampshire does adopt right to work. I'd frankly keep it at the state level, because as each new state becomes right to work, they send the signal to the remaining states, don't be stupid. Why would you want to be California's unemployment level when you could be Texas's employment level or North Dakota's? And I think if you believe in the 10th Amendment, we ought to let the states learn from each other. And the right-to-work states are creating a lot more jobs today than the heavily unionized states.
I don't know why he's so angry.
I think Ben Bernanke is a large part of the problem and ought to be fired as rapidly as possible. The Federal Reserve ought to be audited, and we should have all the decision documents for 2008, 9, and 10 so we can understand who he bailed out, why he bailed them out, who he did not bail out, and why he did not bail them out. So I'm glad that Ben Bernanke recognizes some of the wreckage his policies have led to. Lower taxes, less regulation, more American energy, and have faith in the American job creator as distinct from a Saul Alinsky radicalism of higher taxes, bigger bureaucracy with more regulations, no American energy, as the president announced again today in his decision on offshore.
I don't know why he's so angry.
Bill Gates drops out of college to found Microsoft. Is he in the 1% or the 99%? Historically, this is the richest country in the history of the world because corporations succeed in creating both profits and jobs, and it's sad that the news media doesn't report accurately how the economy works.
Speaker, I'm sorry, but what is the media reporting inaccurately about the economy?
What?
What is the media reporting inaccurately about the economy?
I love humor disguised as a question. That's terrific. I have yet to hear a single reporter ask a single Occupy Wall Street person a single rational question about the economy that would lead them to say, for example, who's going to pay for the park you're occupying if there are no businesses making a profit?
I don't know why he's so angry.
American families have lost some $7 trillion in home value in the last 5 years. Right now, 4 million people are behind on their mortgage or in foreclosure. 25% of homeowners owe more to the banks than their house is actually worth.
If the Republican House next week would repeal Dodd-Frank and allow us to put pressure on the Senate to repeal Dodd-Frank, you'd see the housing market start to improve overnight. Dodd-Frank kills small banks, it kills small business, the federal regulators are anti-housing loan, and it has maximized the pain level. Today the banks are actually profiting more by foreclosing than by encouraging short sales. But in the long run, if you want the housing market to come back, the economy has to come back. When you're at 4% unemployment, you suddenly have a dramatic increase in demand for housing. When you're at 9% plus unemployment, it's hard to get the housing market to come back.
I don't know why he's so angry.
And no president of the United States should ever again say, because of some political fight in Washington, I may not be able to send you your check. That money is sitting there, that money is available, and the country ought to pay the debt it owes the people who put the money in there. We're at the end of the welfare state era of dependency, debt, distortion, and dishonesty. The student loan program began when Lyndon Johnson announced it, I think, with a $15 million program. It's an absurdity. What does it do? It expands the ability of students to stay in college longer because they don't see the cost. It actually means they take fewer hours per semester on average. It takes longer for them to get to school. It allows them to tolerate tuitions going up absurdly. By 2014, there will be one administrator for every teacher on college campuses in the United States. Now, let me give you a contrast that's very startling. The College of the Ozarks is a work-study college. You cannot apply to it unless you need student aid, and they have no student aid. You have to work 20 hours a week during the year to pay tuition and books. You work 40 hours a week during the summer to pay for room and board. 92% of the students graduate owing no debt. The 8% who owe debt owe $5,000 because they bought a car. Now, that is a model so different, it will be culture shock for the students of America to learn we actually expect them to go to class, study, get out quickly, charge as little as possible, and emerge debt-free by doing the right things for 4 years.
Governor Perry.
And the fact that Obama is the best food stamp president in history, I'd like to be the best paycheck president in history.
I don't know why he's so angry.
You know, there are a number of ways to be smart about Iran and relatively few ways to be dumb, and the administration skipped all the ways to be smart.
Since you mentioned Egypt, Mr. Speaker, I just want to know if you were president, if the aid that we currently provide on an annualized basis to Egypt would be completely rethought and possibly eliminated, if you were president.
It would certainly be completely rethought, and candidly,
The degree to which the Arab Spring may become an anti-Christian spring is something which bothers me a great deal, and I would certainly have the State Department intervening on behalf of the Coptic Christians who are being persecuted under the new system, having their churches burned, having people killed, and I'd be pretty insistent that we are not going to be supportive of a regime which is explicitly hostile to religions other than Islam.
I don't know why he's so angry.
I would explicitly repudiate what Obama's done on Agenda 21 as the kind of interference from the United Nations that's wrong. There are a number of other areas. I would also, frankly, apply Lean Six Sigma to the Pentagon to liberate the money to rebuild the Navy. We need a capital investment program, and this administration is shrinking the Navy to a point where it's going to be incapable of doing its job worldwide. So, well, first of all, I think that it's a good thing today that the Arab League suspended Syria. I think this administration should have been much more aggressive against Assad. I mean, it's ironic to me that Mubarak, who had been our ally for years, who had done everything he could to help the United States, who had helped us in the Iraq campaigns, who had done literally everything we had requested of him, he was dumped overnight by this administration in a way that signaled everybody in the world, don't rely on the United States because they'll abandon you in a heartbeat if they feel like it. Assad, who is our enemy and is an ally of Iran, has had amazingly soft treatment by our State Department, as though they are afraid to make him feel bad.
I don't know why he's so angry.
There are 4 interlocking national security problems. Debt and the deficit's one, energy is a second one, manufacturing is a third one, and science and technology is a fourth. And you need to have solutions that fit all 4. I mean, the thing that most worries me about this super committee is that they fail to understand that innovation and growth have to be at the heart of what we're doing. If we're serious, what you want to do is fundamentally reform and overhaul the federal government, fundamentally, while at the same time accelerating economic growth to bring unemployment down to 4%. That combination gets you back to a balanced
Mr. Speaker.
I don't know why he's so angry.
This is a government centralization, so the politicians define America on a scale that is the opposite of the Founding Fathers. We are either in the next few years going to become a secular socialist country dominated by very left-wing values, or we're going to reach out and not only defeat the left, but insist on a principled conservatism that can solve the problems, can reduce the size of government, and can create greater prosperity, greater freedom, and greater safety. And we need every citizen who cares about their country, their children, and their grandchildren to be actively involved to help save America.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
The American people create jobs, not government.
Would you reappoint Ben Bernanke?
I would fire him tomorrow. I think the Fed should be audited. I'm not particularly worried about Governor Perry and Governor Romney frightening the American people when President Obama scares them every single day. When I was Speaker, we added 11 million jobs in a bipartisan effort, including welfare reform, the largest capital gain tax cut in history. We balanced the budget for 4 straight years. How would the country feel today at 4.2% unemployment? That's my credential. I'm going to outline a 21st century contract with America. It's going to be far bolder, far deeper, far more profound than what we did in 1994 or what I helped Jack Kemp and Ronald Reagan do in 1980. I am very much in favor of school choice. My personal preference would be to have a Pell Grant for K through 12 so that every parent could pick with their child any school they wanted to send them to. I think unemployment compensation should be tied directly to a training program so that that 99 weeks becomes an investment in human capital, giving us the best trained workforce in the world. But I believe it is fundamentally wrong to give people money for 99 weeks for doing nothing. The Congress this year, this next week, ought to repeal the Dodd-Frank bill. They ought to repeal the Sarbanes-Oxley bill. They ought to start creating jobs right now, because for those 14 million Americans, this is a depression now. Well, I'm frankly not interested in your effort to get Republicans fighting each other. I, for one, and I hope all of my friends up here, are going to repudiate every effort of the news media to get Republicans to fight each other to protect Barack Obama, who deserves to be defeated, and all of us are committed as a team. Whoever the nominee is, we are all for defeating Barack Obama. Nothing more than election night when Barack Obama loses decisively.